Hello, my name is Josh, and I'm a watchaholic. Welcome to Horology Insanity. What is up, my watch friends? So, check this out. This is our third and final installment on the Adamas Terra. Now, I say third and final when the reality is this is a loaner. I've mentioned that before. Mine is coming in because I backed this project as soon as I found out about it. And so when mine gets here, I'm going to probably do another video just to show you the difference in like the one that I get and the striations that it has compared to this one. This one almost kind of looks like Wolverine and his three claws took a strike out of that dial. That's kind of what this one looks like the more I look at it. But all of them are different. Every dial is going to be unique. They're all going to be just a little different. They might be even different shades of blue, some more white or gray, more rust looking colors. So, I'm curious to see. So anyway, but of this series, this is really the third and final installment. And what I want to do, I've done an unboxing, I've done a review, and I want to do some comparisons. One of the main goals of this channel is really to look at and weigh out all the pros and cons and be able to put watches side by side next to each other that you may not get to experience, but that it will allow you to kind of see the differences and the similarities that I'm referring to. And so I've mentioned before, this is the Adamas Terra. It's basically a Zelos Mako version 3, but with this beautiful sodalite dial. Now, here, for example, is the Zelos Mako V3 Meteorite, which was one of the first to come out with the Meteorite bezel insert as well. So let me just back us up for a second. See if I can do this. The V1 right here, Mako, you can see similarities in the dial. You'll see that on the right, they cleaned up the dial a little bit. They made the indices a little bit larger. On the left, you'll see that at the 12, 3, and 9, it has 2 applied indices instead of just 1. And so that's something that he did on the dial. You'll also notice that the others have the date function with a color match date wheel at the 6 o'clock, where the Adamas Terra does not. But you'll see very, very, very kind of similar handsets and an overall aesthetic to the watch. But you'll notice that here it has the black ceramic bezel with the Meteorite dial. And so it's interesting to see how they pick and choose the combos and which one will get which. Now, I will say that I'm curious, and I wish more companies would do this. So if you're familiar, Hamtun with the Kraken H2 and Helm are 2 good examples off the top of my head that provide like aftermarket bezels. So for example, you can buy the watch with one bezel, but like my Hamptons, I bought them with whatever color bezel, like black. But they also had an option for me to buy a stainless steel bezel and to buy a black bezel or a blue bezel. Well, yeah, I have stainless steel, black, and blue. I bought all of the above. Again, my strategy is collect them all. But I wasn't sure what the watch was going to look like. And so I bought those because they weren't really that expensive, and it can completely change the overall aesthetic and the way a watch kind of wears on your wrist. And so I'm curious, when the sodalite first came out, I was curious, what would it look like with a black bezel or maybe with a stainless steel bezel? So I don't know if we can garner enough interest in helping Elshan to make that an option for us, like in the future. I do get the business implications and why he doesn't do that, because unlike Helm and Ross over at Hampton, he only makes a set number of these, and then the next variation is going to be different. For example, these bezels probably are not interchangeable. And it's because it's a completely different case design in this V3, and so completely different. Well, the crystals look similar, but with some of these things, if you change it even a fraction of a millimeter, then those aren't going to fit. And so I get why he doesn't do it to where those other folks are processing basically the same design and just making batches after batches after batches so they can recoup their costs on the bezels. But that's one area where I really wish this Zelos would do in general, and I wish that this Adamas might have offered like either a stainless steel bezel or a black bezel. Now, let me talk about, real quick, the experience. I did this a little bit in the review video, but this bezel looks so much brighter under my studio lights than it does in person. And so the overall texture right now under my studio lights, it looks like there's a kind of a color disparity between the blue in the Sodalite and the blue in the bezel. And I will say, and I'll try to roll in a couple of pictures here, when I'm actually wearing it in normal day-to-day conditions, I don't see that. I don't. They look like they're the same color. And so that is interesting to me. And it definitely, in my opinion, makes the watch wear better than it maybe looks in photos, or than it might even look in this video under these studio lights. So take that in mind. If you get one of these, or if you're considering getting one, look at the myriad of pictures, look at different video conditions if people are filming these, in under different lighting conditions, and take that for what it's worth, because it does look very different under different shades of light. Okay, now let's do a couple of other comparisons. So you'll know that I have the blue Meteorite bronze case here, and you can see that the blue Meteorite, when the light hits it, it does have striations. The blue in the Sodalite is a shade lighter, and I think it's particularly attributed to the fact that the striations are kind of gray in color, and then they've got like a little accent of rust. So I don't know if anybody's a geologist. If you are, drop it down in the comments. I want to look up what Sodalite is made of, because I'm curious if the rust color that I'm seeing, let me try to zoom in. Look at that. I was about to zoom in on the watch face instead of on my phone. You see there how in the depths of it, it's got like a copper color. It almost looks like rust, but it gives it a beautiful tone. To where over here on the left, you see how most of the striations are a little more gray, almost white. And so I'm curious if, what is this made of? Does this have anything in it that actually is rusting? Is that like a patina? Is that something that will continue? Is it, like the bronze here, it patinas over time. So I am curious about that, but you can see here the blue Meteorite on the right with the blue bezel has a very similar effect, but the Sodalite's a little bit lighter and has a little bit more color variation with the striations. Like I said, unless you get that right in the full sun and let that light up. But okay, so there's that. Now, I've got that blue one in the background. That's just the V1, like helical or whatever it's called. I showed you here. Here is the V3 Meteorite. And I will say, I'm going to give it up to Zelos real quick. I think they're even improving on the dials and the striations of their dials. Because look at the texture that version 3 has compared to this version 1. It really is different. And I think the version 3 looks a lot better. So I look forward to continuing to see options of that. But let me hold it up here next to this teal for a second. And you see how the teal has the stainless steel bezel. That is what makes me really curious about maybe putting that stainless steel bezel on this blue one. Now, the problem is, since you can't order aftermarket bezels, I'm going to have to steal a bezel from another watch and put it on here. Meaning, if I swapped these two, this blue would then go on the teal, and I don't know if I would like that or not. Now, I also have a Frost, which has a black bezel, and so I could try to do like a three-way swap, where I put the blue on the Frost, put the stainless steel one that's here on the right onto this Sodalite, and, did I get that right? No, put the black on the teal, it'd be like musical chairs, basically. I'd put the black one on this teal watch, I'd put the silver one, the stainless steel one on the Sodalite, and then I'd put the blue maybe on the Frost white dial. And that might look pretty good. So I may end up doing kind of a musical chairs version of that. But you can see here, after looking at this teal with stainless steel, how the stainless steel bezel on the Sodalite might look really sharp. So that's my comparison. Now, the last thing I want to talk about real quick is this clasp and buckle system and the bracelet. So the bracelet, I've compared it in the review to the old V1. And you can see that they are very, very similar. It looks like there's a little bit better brushing on the new ones. They're not quite as shiny, but they are just as comfortable. So if you're a fan of these previous style Mako bracelets, then the same kind of smooth texture and comfort and articulation you get, that's going to be the same. Now, we talked about the clasps and the fact that this old clunker on my left, right, has been upgraded to this new, much more sleek design that still allows for the quick adjust, but doesn't give it that big old heft and thickness. And so that is definitely a big improvement. And what I want to compare these to, for anybody who out there has experienced them, the Christopher Ward. So this is just a quartz Christopher Ward that I've got. But you'll see here, bracelet aside, we're really looking at this clasp. And the clasp, it has slightly different pushers. So let me see if I can get that up here. You'll notice that the pushers on the Mako on the left are more oblong, to where these are circled. But I also must say too, I've got a new C65 Trident or something like that, and it has the pushers like the Mako does. So even CW, I think, goes through different batches and iterations. But this has the two pushers, open it up, and if you look at that quick adjust, it is basically the same design as we see in the Mako. So let's open this up. See? And so the way that it works, where my thumbnail is, you push that down, and I will say you need a little bit of a thumbnail to grab a hold of that. And then the quick adjust will either extend out, giving you some more space if your wrist is a little swollen, or pushing it back in to get it. Now, the one con I'm going to give to this, well, technically there's two, and I'm going to talk about them now. I mentioned talking about them in a review, and then I didn't. I mainly forgot. But here's my two cons for this. This quick adjust movement, like the ratcheting functionality, is nowhere near as smooth as it is on the Christopher Ward. So for example, when I get in here on the Christopher Ward, the button is a little bit easier to press, and then look at how smooth that articulation is. I can just run it in and out, right? It is smooth. And I will say it's not just this Christopher Ward, my C65 is like that, and here is a titanium one. And I'm curious if this is a titanium or steel clasp, because it's a titanium bracelet, but it's got this clasp. But you look on the inside, it's the same mechanism. And when I flip this around, the adjustment for this, it's still buttery smooth. And so I don't know, I had heard that this adjustment or this mechanism couldn't be made out of titanium. So I'm curious if maybe the inner part there is stainless, maybe this outer, because the outer matches the bracelet. But I don't know if they just gave that a brushing or a texture to make the stainless steel look like titanium. Anyway, that's my first complaint, if I have one at all, about this. Now, I still will say, is this clasp, even though it's a little bit stiff, better than this one? Yes. Yes, a million times, yes. I like this clasp, but I almost don't wear this that much. And you'll see that most of my Makos aren't on the bracelets because I did not care for this big, chunky clasp. And I know a bunch of micro brands were using them. There was a whole season where this was the standard clasp with the micro adjust. But man, it's like a Mack truck on the end of that bracelet. So this is so much better of a design. It doesn't have the thickness. It does still have the micro adjust, which is what you really want. And I'm curious to see if I can't maybe soak it in olive oil, if that might help it loosen up, or just sit here and articulate it and just push it out and in, and maybe it'll loosen up, kind of wear in. But I am curious about that. Now, the last one I'm going to talk about is this. So you'll notice on the CW, they have, and this still has the blue tape on it, but you'll notice how they just have a little etching there with their logo, okay? And the rest of the clasp is brushed. And it's the same way on this one, even though you can see this has gotten a lot more wear. And y'all know that I'm weird about my watches. I bought this used like this, and I'm actually using it as a project watch to see if I can refinish this titanium using erasers and, you know, some of the micro sanders and some other things. So that's what this is for. It's a project watch. But anyway, this clasp, you'll notice again, aside from taking a little bit of wear, it's got just this nice, you know, you can rub your thumb across it and you feel it, but you almost don't even know it's there, right? And so that's not the case with this new clasp. Now, you've heard me talk before about how some of the case backs on the Mako V3 are a little sharp. And in fact, I'm rubbing my finger on this one, it's a little sharp. You can see that I still have the sticker on the back of it, which helps reduce that when I wear it. But the edge right there when I go, it's a little sharp. And in fact, Elshin has been kind of sending out blank case backs so people can swap out their sharp case backs that either occurred on the Mako V3 or on the Swordfish. Like my bronze teal Swordfish has that sharp case back as well. This does have that. So the cool thing is it's got this beautiful kind of racing stripe that's brushed that goes down the middle of it. Now you will see that it does take on scratches. The brush section does. The brush section takes on scratches a little easier than the normal brushing over here. So that's one thing to take into account and note. And I've heard other people say the same with their Swordfish 40s and the Threshers that have this same new clasp. But the other thing is the sharpness. When I run my thumb along each line here and here or across the logo, it's sharp again. So I don't know if when I get mine, I may try to use one of the micro sander things to take a little bit of that bite off. The good news is it's not like on your wrist. So when you're wearing it, right, unless I do like this with my thumb, you don't notice it. It's not like the case back where you actually noticed it on your wrist. And so for everybody, there's a wrist shot, 8-inch wrist, 40mm Mako. But that's the other kind of con that I would say. And I hope that Elshin gets that feedback and that he works with his manufacturer, because in future iterations, yeah, that really needs to be smoothed out a little bit. So I don't mind the scratches on the center, even though, you know, I have OCD and that kind of stuff usually would drive me nuts. But that doesn't bother me in this case. But the sharp edges do. It does. So anyway, with that, the only other thing I've noticed, sometimes the clasp can be a little difficult to kind of push in. And so sometimes I either, you know, have to really give it a click with my thumb, or I just hold the pushers in and let it lock that way. I've noticed though, even in the little bit of time that I've had this, that's loosening up and working better. So I suspect that if I play with the quick adjust and just maybe a little bit of olive oil, working in and out, that it also will smooth out. So anyway, that is my series on this absolutely beautiful watch. And I still go back to the same thing that I said before. This watch is all about the dial. It's my opinion, but I think it's true. This watch is all about the dial. All right, my friends. Until we talk again, please remember what really matters. That's not watches. Keep the insanity safe.